The game was still within reach when Kobe Bryant felt the shift. Not a shout, not a signal meant for the crowd. Just a glance from the bench and a subtle motion of the hand. He stood, expecting to check back in, then realized the message was the opposite. He was being told to sit. The clock showed only minutes remaining. Kobe walked to the bench without protest and took his seat, posture straight, expression unreadable. Around him, the game continued as if nothing unusual had happened. Plays were called, substitutions rotated. Voices rose and fell. Kobe remained still. No towel over his head. No conversation. His hands rested on his knees, fingers locked together, eyes fixed forward. This wasn't rest, it wasn't protection. To him it felt like removal at the moment. Responsibility was highest. He had been through missed shots, bad stretches, criticism from crowds and media. This felt different. Those moments came from performance. This came from decision. A choice made without him, about him. Kobe replayed the final possessions in his head, searching for justification. He found none that satisfied him. The crowd sensed something was off. Murmurs rippled through the stands. Some questioned the rotation. Others assumed there was an injury. Kobe heard none of it. He focused on the floor, counting breaths, controlling posture. Reaction would come later. Not here. As the final minutes slipped away, the bench grew louder. Instructions flew. Kobe stayed silent. He didn't lean forward. He didn't look toward the coach. Whatever followed this moment would not be shaped in public. The buzzer sounded. The result was sealed without his involvement. Teammates stood, hands were shaken. The routine aftermath unfolded. Kobe stayed seated a moment longer than everyone else, not in disbelief, in calculation. Being frozen on the bench wasn't humiliation to him. It was information. And information, when handled correctly, could be turned into leverage. Something had shifted, and what followed would not be forgiving. Kobe Bryant didn't rush off the court when the horn sounded. He waited until the bench cleared and the noise softened into background hum. Only then did he stand and walk toward the tunnel, eyes forward, shoulders relaxed. There was no visible anger, no exchange for the cameras. What made the moment unsettling was its restraint. This wasn't denial or shock. It was composure being chosen deliberately. Inside the locker room, the mood felt uneven. Voices overlapped, explanations floated without landing, and routines filled the space. Kobe sat apart, unlacing his shoes slowly, replaying the sequence that led him there. Not the missed shots, not the defensive lapses, the decision itself. Being removed when stakes were highest stayed fixed in his mind, refusing to fade. He did not approach the coach that night, not because he lacked words, but because timing mattered. Immediate conversation would have been emotional. Kobe wasn't interested in emotion. He was interested in clarity. Silence preserved leverage and prevented misinterpretation. Anything said too soon would weaken what he intended to do next. On the flight home, he watched the game once, then again. He studied moments of hesitation, shifts in trust, and the exact possession where the choice was made. The film confirmed what he felt on the bench. The decision wasn't about one play. It was about confidence, who held it, and when it moved. Being frozen out forced a realization he hadn't fully confronted. Control could be taken from him, even when he believed he had earned it. That understanding didn't diminish him. It sharpened his focus. If control was conditional, then conditions had to be removed. By the time the plane landed, the response was already formed. It wouldn't involve confrontation or complaint. It would involve preparation that left no ambiguity. The next time a decision loomed, doubt would have nowhere to live. The rest of the team slept that night. Kobe didn't, not from frustration, but intention. Being sidelined in the final minutes wasn't something to argue against. It was something to make impossible. What followed wouldn't announce itself immediately. It wouldn't seek validation, but it would be exacting, persistent, and unforgiving. The response didn't begin with confrontation. It began with removal. Kobe Bryant stripped away anything that could be questioned: conditioning, timing, decision-making under pressure. Practices started earlier. Sessions ended later. He treated every drill as if it were the final minutes he had just watched from the bench. The goal wasn't volume. It was certainty. He altered how he prepared for close games. Situational reps multiplied, end-of-clock reads, defensive switches, passing angles under collapse. He rehearsed scenarios where trust wavered and rebuilt them through repetition. If a coach hesitated, Kobe wanted the answer to be obvious before the question formed. Teammates felt the shift quickly. The pace tightened. Expectations sharpened. Mistakes were corrected immediately, without commentary. Kobe didn't demand attention. He demanded readiness. Some players rose to it, others drifted. The separation wasn't personal. It was procedural. Film sessions grew quieter. Kobe asked fewer questions and offered fewer explanations. He pointed to possessions and rewound them without speaking, letting the evidence carry the message. The standard moved from suggestion to requirement. Coaches noticed the change. Not the hours, those were familiar, but the intent. Kobe wasn't chasing approval. He was eliminating doubt. When late-game options were discussed, his presence felt less optional and more inevitable. Games reflected it. In tight stretches, the ball found him naturally. Not through force, but gravity. Decisions aligned faster. Hesitation thinned. The bench grew quieter at the moments that mattered. Kobe understood the risk. Elevating standards could create distance. He accepted that cost. Control was worth it. The response had taken shape, and it was already working. The first real test came without warning. A close game, tight rotations, the kind of fourth quarter where every possession carried weight. Kobe felt the shift before it was acknowledged. The ball found him earlier in sets. Defensive attention followed him instinctively. Nothing was said on the bench, but the decision-making felt different this time. Pressure arrived fast. Missed shots early. A turnover. The kind of sequence that invites hesitation. Kobe didn't react. He slowed the game internally, trusting the preparation he had built since being frozen out. Each movement felt rehearsed, not forced. The noise faded. Teammates sensed the composure. Spacing improved. Cuts became sharper. The game stopped feeling chaotic and started feeling ordered. Not because Kobe dominated every play, but because his presence stabilized choices around him. On the bench, there was no debate, no glance, no hesitation. When the final minutes arrived, Kobe stayed on the floor. The difference wasn't symbolic. It was practical. The conditions that led to the earlier decision no longer existed. The result mattered, but less than the confirmation. Control had returned, not through demand, but through inevitability. The response had held under stress. After the game, there was no celebration. Kobe reviewed the film that night, marking small lapses others would ignore. Success didn't soften the standard. It reinforced it. The memory of the bench never left him. It didn't motivate him emotionally. It disciplined him structurally. The test had passed, and with it, the margin for reversal disappeared. What lingered after that game wasn't the stat line or the result. It was the shift in how moments were handled. The bench no longer felt like a place decisions happened without him. Not because of entitlement, but because uncertainty had been removed. Kobe Bryant had turned a moment of exclusion into a framework that made exclusion illogical. Teammates adjusted quietly. Not all at once, not with speeches. The pace of practices changed. Details mattered sooner. Late-game discussions shortened. Choices became clearer. Kobe didn't need to assert control. The work had done that for him. Coaches recognized it too. Rotation stabilized. Trust condensed. When margins tightened, there was less debate. The bench no longer searched for answers. It recognized them. That recognition didn't come from authority. It came from repetition proving reliable. Kobe never revisited the benching publicly. He didn't reference it in interviews or use it as fuel for narratives. To him, it was a data point, a signal that exposed a gap. Once the gap was closed, the signal lost relevance. What changed most was how Kobe approached control. He no longer waited for moments to justify themselves. He prepared so thoroughly that moments arrived already decided, that preparation wasn't emotional. It was procedural. Being frozen in the final minutes had not weakened him. It had clarified leverage. Control wasn't demanded. It was earned through consistency that removed alternatives. Years later, that game would barely be mentioned. The benching would fade into context, but the structure it created would remain visible in every close decision that followed. What came after was unforgiving, not to others, but to standards. And once those standards were set, they never loosened again.